Hey, good morning. My name is Ralph Jodice. I'm retired from the United States Air Force. I served 36 and a half years in the United States Air Force, and I retired as a lieutenant general, and that is a 3-star general. It was a real honor and privilege to serve in the United States Air Force, and what originally brought me to the Air Force is that I wanted to fly because I wanted to be an astronaut. In the 1960s was when I was in grammar school, and I finished 8th grade in 1969. And of course, you go to high school, and everybody says, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Well, I watched the whole space program, watched Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon, and I thought to myself, that looks pretty cool. I'd like to do that." And of course, then my guidance counselors and people in high school said, "Well, you've got to have a degree in math or science." And I'm like, "Well, that's good because I like math, I like science. I can't spell worth a darn." And so, and they said, "You need to be a military pilot." So I wound up majoring in aerospace engineering. I went to Parks College of Aviation Engineering and Technology, and I joined Air Force ROTC, and I got my commission as a second lieutenant. And serving in the 36 and a half years in the United States Air Force, and then retiring after that time, my fondest memory is having the honor and privilege to lead great men and women, and I've been a commander 6 different times in multiple levels, to include 3 different times in a North Atlantic Treaty Organization or NATO organization. And that honor and privilege to serve alongside some great Americans and great allies is something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. And again, a real honor and privilege to do that.
Okay, my name is Gary Linebaugh. I'm a 66 graduate of Southwestern High School. I entered the military, U.S. Air Force, on August of 1966, the same year I graduated, and was a sergeant when I got discharged. But I was with military police in the Air Force called security police. I did a tour of 18 months at Lowry Air Force Base in Denver, Colorado. I spent 19-month tour at Cam Ranh Air Base in Vietnam, and I came home. My last 11 months in the service were spent down at the Pentagon with Defense Intelligence Agency, working directly for 2-star general, 2-star admiral. Military service was a good experience for me. It learned me how to take care of myself and make a man out of myself.
Hello, my name is Ralph Maiolino. I served in the United States Army, the Pennsylvania Army National Guard, and the Army Reserve. Attained the rank of Lieutenant Colonel and did 28 years of service. Probably the one story that sticks out was I was in Iraq. I was on a detail to go to prisons inside Iraq for finding terrorists, find out who they were and what they had done. As I was conducting an interview, one of the terrorists turned around and told me, when I explained the warrant that we had, he goes, "That wasn't me, it was my cousin." And as soon as he said it to me, I told him that I can't believe I drove, or I shouldn't say drove, but was brought 3,000 miles across the world, and I have to hear the same lame excuse that I get as a police officer in the United States. And the guy looked at me just shocked, but I couldn't believe there I was, 3,000 miles. I'm getting the same crazy excuses from people that I could have gotten back here.
Hi, my name's Renee Woodward. I was in the U.S. Navy from 1986 until 1995. When I got out, I was an aerographer's mate first class, which is E6. I was a weather forecaster. They asked for one memory, but there's a million in my head, so just real 2 quick ones. My first one is when I went into the Navy. I really didn't have a designated job. I got put wherever I was needed. One of the things I had done was stationed on a tugboat that was at a submarine base that would move the submarines in and out from dock or dry dock. One of the things I loved about that job was being able to take stores to the submarines. They would come in from out to sea. We would meet them out there, and we would transfer food from our tugboat to their submarine while we were underway. So that was pretty neat experience to have several times. Fast forward many years, I went to school, became a weather forecaster, and one of the things I loved about weather and working in that community was the very close-knit group, because it's a very small community. When we would have situations where we were under a hurricane warning or anything like that, everyone was called into the office, and you were there for days together as a group, working 12-hour shifts on and off, to make sure that your pilots that were coming in from all over the world were either being directed somewhere else, or you were forecasting for the ones that were at the base to go to other parts of the world or somewhere around the country to stay safe whenever those situations arise. Thank you so much for having me here.
Blaise Raville, United States Marine Corps, from 1994 to 1998. My rank was sergeant when I got out. Quick memory that I have is when we were deployed to Liberia, which is a country on the west coast of Africa. The warlords over there were getting a little too close to our American embassy, so we had to go over there, and eventually we had to evacuate it. But we had one day where we could venture out on our own, and we went to a neighboring country called Sierra Leone. And I ran into a young man, he was about 16 or 17 years old, from Sierra Leone. And we were in uniform, and he approached us and was very interested in the Marines and America in itself. And after having a discussion with him, he actually told me how his dream was to come to America, because he had heard so many good things about America, and he actually, poor kid was sincere, offered me his life savings to stow him away on the ship to take him back to America. He only had $60, and he thought that was a lot, and obviously in their world it is. And quite honestly, it kind of broke my heart to tell him no, because all he wanted was a better life for himself and his family. And what I came away from that is how we take what we have for granted here in America. Simple things like running water, having someone pick up your garbage. So I've never forgotten that, and I think we truly are lucky to be in this America. So.
Merle Renoll, I was in 1964 through 1966, 63rd Armor in Fort Riley, Kansas. I spent a lot of time TDY. I was a Spec 4, worked on tanks and small arms. The thing I remember most memorable was when I went to Macomb, Wisconsin to try training National Guardsmen. Had a first lieutenant put 22 gallons of oil in an engine, and come back into the motor pool and ask how much oil does it hold. And while I was up there, we had open borders then. Went to Canada. We went on a bus, took a bus to Canada, a military bus. We went over to a park one weekend, had a party up there. It was a cookout. That's the thing I remember most memorable, how just got in this bus and drove across the border. Now you stand in line to get in and out. It was like, when I was in basic training, I remember a platoon sergeant told us that you're only going to remember the good times. You're not going to remember any of the things which upset you or angered you during the time here. And they say after I got out, I was in inactive reserves for almost 4 years before I was discharged. So I had like 7.5 years in the Army.
My name is Eric Mueller. I served in the United States Army and finished my career in the United States Army Reserve. I retired as a major, and I served in Germany for nearly 6 years, and at that time was the easternmost forward deployed division in the United States Army. It was at the height of the Cold War. Had a really great experience serving both on active duty and in the Army Reserve. Met some really great, and served with some really great people. You can tell by my funny hat that I'm in the American Legion. I'm very involved with the Legion because the American Legion is the country's largest wartime veteran service organization, and it's responsible for the original GI Bill and subsequent amendments to that. And just wanted to leave you with a thought that I'm a third-generation veteran, and my son's a fourth-generation veteran. And along the lines of the American Legion, the 4 pillars of the American Legion are veterans, national defense, Americanism, and children and youth. So thank you for doing this. This is a great opportunity. I love to tell folks about our military because it is a mandate by the Constitution, and if we didn't have our military, we wouldn't have a country. Thank you.
Morning, my name is Michael Brown. I was a draftee in 1967 into the U.S. Army. Served my initial time at Fort Benning, Georgia, and then was reassigned overseas to Seoul, South Korea. Spent 14 months in Korea and enjoyed it very much. I was attached to the UN headquarters in Seoul. Well, we had a good mix of other countries in the UN command, so it was a learning experience and very exciting for me. Probably one of my most memorable experiences was Korea. South Korea in the 1960s was a very violent place. There was curfews from midnight to 5 a.m. and anyone that was found in the streets was considered an infiltrator and was summarily executed. They didn't fool with them, they just shot them. So we were out one evening in the village shopping and clowning around. You had to be back on the compound by midnight. We didn't make it for whatever reason. We just weren't able to get back. And we were in imminent danger of being executed by friendly forces. But luckily we found a family, an American soldier with a Korean family, took us in for the evening, and at 5 o'clock in the morning we were back on the compound. But it was an exciting time. I was drafted, probably would have stayed in, but Vietnam was my next stop if I re-enlisted, so I decided to get out and come home. That's it.
Hello, I am Petty Officer First Class Philip Latshaw. I am an operations specialist in the United States Navy. One of my most memorable stories is pulling into Greece when you see the mountains that are just all the way up to the clouds. It's just an eerie feeling, and then seeing the castles that are on the sides of the mountains. It's one of those, my go-to story, I guess. You know, it's that awesome experience that I've had. I've been in for 7 years and I've absolutely loved it. Thank you for this opportunity.
My name is John Livelsberger. I had 23 years, 10 months of service. It was all reserve and guard time. My final rank was, I retired as a major. I spent 4 years enlisted. I got in the reserves in '66. I was going to college. Switched my majors. Had to either pick something up or lost my deferment, so I joined the reserves, hoping to get back to school. That didn't happen. Ended up getting married in '68. Went to basic training at Fort Dix in '67. As I said, I spent 4 years enlisted. Went through, transferred to the Army Guard, the unit here in Hanover. At that time, I started out in infantry. They were armored cav. Got my commission through the state OCS program. Stayed with the 28th Division. Commanded a couple batteries. Served as S2 and intelligence officer. At the end, I was what they call an assistant FIS Corps, the Fire Support Coordinator for 28th Divarti. I joined the Guard in hopes of getting back to school. I stayed in the Guard just for what it meant. It was the right thing to do. They were all good people. We needed to have a ready reserve and Guard, and the Guard unit was activated in 2008. They went over. So I had 3 floods and a trucker strike. It helped me a lot in my civilian career, just based on the disciplines and the leadership that the Guard gave me. It was a great thing. I recommend that everybody do it. Thank you.